Hi everyone, today we did get a bit of a retracement, filled the gaps, found some trend structure here, and then found some support rallying into the close. A little bit of upward momentum, a little bit of mixed signals here. Looking at the SMA, still looks a little bit bearish on the RSI, but let's take a look at all of the charts and see if we can find some direction for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, we got the announcements with Trump and Apple detailing another $100 billion of U.S. expansion. This was really last night, but we have a little bit more detail on it now. An additional $100 billion over the next 4 years, moving suppliers here to the United States, starting with $2.5 billion to expand the Corning glass production for all iPhones and Apple Watches. And this is on top of the $500 billion already announced by Apple, made in February, again over the next 4 years. So huge amounts of money really coming into the United States on behalf of Apple, and this is why they are getting around the tariffs, at least for now. This is good for Apple, and there were several other companies also kind of laid out in this. If they are investing in the United States, they're going to be exempt from tariffs, at least for now. Trump said he expects new factories to be built based on these policies. The other kind of flip side to this was, if these people do not follow through on these announcements, supposedly the Trump administration is going to tally up all of the tariffs that they should have paid, and then they would come due upon the administration's determination that they did not actually follow through on the promises made. So big news there. Overall, I think this is good for the economy, good for the US to bring production back. And this is not Apple's first commitment to the US. And I do believe that they will follow through on this, and ultimately it will be better for the United States and better for Apple, even if it is a little bit more expensive and cuts into their margins at least a little bit. Moving over to fear and greed, we ended at a 55 from a 55, so pretty choppy on the session price-wise, and the fear and greed index did not move. You can see it here on momentum, still neutral, sideways choppy, strength continuing to go down, breadth also going down. Want to see what that looks like later. That was very concerning. Yesterday, put call ratio coming down a little bit. That's good. Volatility also coming down a little bit. That's also bullish. And then safe haven demand still flat. Junk bond demand still at a very low level. This has been downtrending for a while. Is this kind of a peak point? That is what we've been talking about. We hit kind of a peak level here around the 15th, 16th. Come off of that a little bit, but it hasn't really continued quite yet. Moving over to the economic calendar here, you can see we did get initial jobless claims very slightly higher. Previous numbers very slightly lower. Initial claims slightly higher. Really very little movement on that. Nothing to worry about yet. 30-year bond auction a little bit lower than the previous numbers also. Interesting to see that coming down. Fed balance sheet continues to decline, and that was true today as well. And then for the Friday, there's really nothing on the calendar. Should be a pretty light day in terms of earnings and no data. Moving over to the charts here, we did get a big gap up with that announcement last night, and then we gave it all back to finish basically unchanged on the day, but we are rallying after hours, hitting this trend line here. Had that trend line on there yesterday, hit that structure, closed above it, had this downtrend structure from yesterday, closed above that as well. So now this looks like a slightly bullish structure. Momentum still swinging to the bull side. The thesis from yesterday that this is likely to go to the SMA, I still think is intact. And then looking at this hourly chart, we added this structure here where we're kind of in this with a low, higher low structure here, topping pattern in here. Does this push to the upper trend line around 640? I think that's likely the zone that we're going to, which would take you to that previous all-time high as well. Moving over to that 4-hour chart on the Tasty charts for the SPY, you can see we went right to that trailing stop, 637. That was the zone we said we were going to. We hit that level, and then we did reject from there. We could not close above it. But again, here in the after hours, it seems like we are headed back to that area. So that's the target, 637.39, or about $4 higher from current price with the after hours move. You can see the wick to the zone, looks like a nice structure. Should see this go a little bit higher tomorrow. And then looking at that hourly chart, back into bearish conditions with the move here, but this has been alternating, slowly grinding higher. I think this is likely to go to that trailing stop right in that same area, 638.18, so right in there, 637.50, 638 is the target for tomorrow. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same kind of thesis here. Big gap up, gave a lot of that back, filled the gap, came all the way down to my level here, 566, touched that level and bounced. So I actually had really nice trades. So I was long into the day, took the profits on the long, actually tried to roll up into it because we were above my level here, 571. Obviously that didn't work out, got stopped out of that position, went short, took profits a little early before hitting the level. I didn't think we would make it all the way to the level there. there, and then bounced at the level, took the long at the level with the stop at 566, and then held the long into the close, which obviously worked out really, really well. Honestly, should have rolled up into that a little bit more aggressively, but it's been good, likely to go to that 571. We're almost there already. Once it breaks above this, I think we'll go to the trend line here around 574. So everything looks super bullish once again, despite this kind of huge move down with the big outside reversal, big gap down and sell, huge volume on all of that. We've retraced almost all of that move. I think we probably at least double top, which means we need to get to about this 574.50 area. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. Tomorrow we should get the touch on that SMA, and then that's going to give us quite a bit more information here. Do we touch this and break through, and we're going to get a resumption on this rally here to new all-time highs, or are we going to touch that, kind of top out here, and then we're going to see a broader topping pattern? This is already potentially a topping pattern with a high, potentially double top in here, waiting to see how that plays out with that structure on the RSI being a little bit worrying. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see that same kind of structure, but we did close above the trailing stop. So this is back to bullish conditions on the 4-hour chart. Came down, hit that 9 EMA, held the structure, and then bounced here looking for a push at least to the high from today, 573.30, and then looking for that upper ATR band potentially in range at 576.59, which is pretty much there with your all-time high. Can we get back to that? Is it going to be a broader topping pattern? Structurally, this looks good. I do like this to the upside, and that seems to be what we're getting, at least for now. And then looking at that hourly chart, this was bullish conditions the whole time, came down, tested the bullish trailing stop, didn't close it below it. Pretty classic trading, honestly. Hit the upper band, sold from there, hit the trailing stop, held the stop, and then rallied out from that, and then rallied out from there, which is pretty textbook. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell was down about 1/3%. Again, gapping higher, trying to hold those gains, couldn't do it. 221.49 was the level, didn't come all the way down to 218.13. And then after hours, getting a little bit of a bounce there. Still think this could get above that level and hold. It's not doing it yet. The SMA here on the RSI looks terrible. Continues to downtrend, showing weakness, but price action shows a little bit of a different story. We'll see if that has any follow through tomorrow. And then the Dow looks just about as bad as it could be. Went right to that next level, rejected from there. 445.16 was that level, fell all the way down to 441. Classic trade there, and then broke the level here. If you're taking it to the trend line, you're probably still in it. After hours, still bouncing a little bit. Momentum did step to bearish there. RSI still showing quite a bit of weakness. Moving over to the Mag 7, after all of that hype, we ended up finishing negative on the day, down 0.11 on the day. Momentum bearish, RSI still below that SMA, still very concerning here. Before we were kind of chopping above and below it, now we have been below it for a couple of days now. Is it going to reject from there? After hours, we're up a smidgen, looking for this trend line here. That was the peak last time. The trend line there, again, would be about 356.50 or so over the next day or two. Momentum is bullish, just that RSI is concerning. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple finally got that breakout on the massive catalyst yesterday that they are going to continue to invest massively in the United States. Huge move for them, 3.18% on that catalyst, pushing it through the trend structure here, this kind of consolidation structure, back above 217.60 for the first time really since mid-April here, and then we're right at the 200, which is your resistance right now. 220.81, can it get to 224, maybe 230 now on this catalyst? Momentum, RSI, everything looks super bullish here, of course, with that move. And then looking at Microsoft, continues to fall 3 days in a row here. It's below the 9. After hours, it's kind of right back to it. VWAP acting as support, 516.96. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla had a good day, but it did not make it to that 324.47 level here. So if you were trading bullish off of 313.80, level break continuation, looking for that zone there, you could have taken it. You were at that 55 EMA, which is just short, 322.80. I tend to take profits a little bit early here, but the level is 324. Can we still make it there? Absolutely, especially if you took it down here. You're probably sitting comfortable. After hours, it's down about $2. That's a little concerning. Structurally, this is still very much consolidation. It didn't cut through here, so markets are pretty complacent between kind of 302 and 324. Maybe we can push to 336 if 324 breaks, but really this is sideways choppy, and I would sell the highs in here unless we get a really decisive breakthrough. And then NVIDIA basically unchanged, up 0.75 on the day, or about $1.30. Did get back above the level 180. That was the level that we put on here. We hadn't closed above that, so that is a new record close. That is on the news yesterday. Part of that catalyst was that they were going to be exempt from tariffs on chips. The concern here is still very much the RSI. This is still downtrending, still very much some divergence there, but on this uptrend, still very much bullish from lower left to upper right. Moving over to Meta and Broadcom. Haven't talked about these in a while. Meta has been kind of sideways choppy here after the massive gap up on their earnings. Hasn't gone to new highs since back here on the 4th. Hasn't gone to new wick highs since the earnings. And now you got a big down candle, 1.3%. Does this start to fall to that 9 EMA around 745.55, maybe the level 736.76? But we'll see. Momentum stepping to bearish. RSI still bullish. We're above the SMA, but it does have a little bit of room to fall to that SMA to kind of continue this structure here. And then looking at Broadcom, this was a benefactor of that announcement, and that was pushing it to new all-time highs back above the trend structure here. Momentum bullish. RSI kind of dealing with that same thing. Clear divergence here as we continue to melt higher. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples had another good day, up 0.76 through the level 81.85. We haven't gotten above that for a little bit here. Can we get above this high here to that 83.43 area? Structurally, this is nice. This has kind of broken to the upside a little bit. We're not completely out of this structure yet, but this has been kind of weak over the last couple of months. Now it looks a little bit better. And then discretionaries, same as kind of everything else, gapped up, tried to go higher, couldn't do it, sold off. We're right at the SMA here on the RSI. That is very much the concern. Is it going to be able to get through here or not and push up to the trend line around 226, the level 227, or is it going to reject from here, giving you that lower high setup? Moving over to breadth. Breadth gapped higher and then sold off. So again, not a very convincing move, very similar to stocks. In terms of the RSI, you still have that downtrending structure, so everything looks very similar, not giving us really new information. We're hanging in there. We're not really going higher. Stocks are going higher while breadth is not going higher, which usually means that rally is going to fail. The big question is, when does that happen? And we don't really know quite yet because the structure is still quite bullish on equities. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the daily, you can see this continues to sell here. Went a little bit lower, potentially holding a higher low here. We're still watching this structure with this trend structure. If it holds in here, still looking for a higher high. Still has a little bit of room to fall before we get to that. That zone is kind of in this 97.50, 97.60 area. So could continue to sell. Didn't have a ton of selling pressure today. Maybe it finds a low in here. It's kind of in that same zone here from mid-June, in that same price action here. Either way, I still think this is kind of a bottoming formation in here. We just need that bigger follow through to the upside. Moving over to bonds, really no new information here on bonds, basically unchanged on both of these. Still holding the structure above the trend line here. Still can't get to that 200 on TLT at 88.69. Want to see it get through there. 89.16 is the next level. J&K really not moving at all. Still above the support, but not really getting to new highs either. So very little movement on bonds here today. Moving over to the VIX. VIX did continue to fall briefly into this zone around this kind of 1550 area. Didn't quite get there. Low of day was 1590 or so. Didn't quite get to the trend line. I think we have at least one more day, tag that trend line, and then we'll see what happens from there. But momentum slightly bearish. RSI, that same kind of setup. Does it fall to the SMA and bounce from there? That is the big question. Moving over to my accounts, I traded pretty well on the day. I was bullish into the session, which was good. Took the profits, didn't participate in the fall, actually shorted the fall, made a little bit of money on that. And then you can see I was long into the close, which seems to be working out. It's up about $1 after hours. Like I said, I should have rolled up into this more aggressively. 564 was the put. There were some pretty good credits on it for tomorrow puts because the market was falling into that zone. And I did get a pretty good trade on that. There's about $50 or so left on this to the upside, so that'll ultimately be a good trade. This will probably expire worthless tomorrow. I'll probably take profits on it pretty soon after the open, I would guess, but everything was good today, which will end up netting about $450 once this comes in, so that was good. And then the dollar position, very small loser there. The dollar continues to fall. As long as that structure stays intact, though, I'll stay long dollar. This is a long trade. It's not a lot of money. I just kind of want to see what happens here on the dollar. But I do want to highlight, I am planning to take profits on this Q's position. That structure on the RSI really across the the board, that bearish divergence does have me a little bit worried that this rally will ultimately fail. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the announcement yesterday. What do you think of the exemptions on tariffs? Is it going to push the United States into a time of prosperity over the next couple of years, or is it all talk just to get out of some tariffs? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.